I'm here to talk about what the refugee crisis is, what has caused it, and what is the best way to deal with it. My essential question is, what is the best way to deal with the Syrian refugee crisis? Before I get started, I'd like to show a map of the Middle East just for context. Alright, so what caused the Syrian refugee crisis? One factor that has come into play over the years is the two sides of the Muslim religion, Sunni and Shiite, battling for control of countries. For some context about this, I'll tell you about the Sunni-Shiite split. The Sunni-Shiite split was a divide in the Muslim religion that happened around 632 AD. The Syrian civil war is a conflict within Syria with three main sides: the Syrian government, the rebel forces, and ISIS. The group against the government became known as the Syrian opposition and is led by Ahmad Tuama. So if ISIS is the main cause of the refugees, it is important to know how it got started. ISIS started out as a group called AQI, which stands for Al-Qaeda in Iraq. The group became infamous for its high-profile assassinations and kidnappings. So how is AQI relevant to the refugee situation? Well, over the years, AQI became ISIS. So ISIS is an acronym for the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. The group often attracts young people from Western countries who are misinformed or confused, and one of its main recruiting tactics is social media. The group is led by a man named Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and is partially famous for its brutal execution videos. This is a territory map of who is in power in and around Syria. The regions change daily because there's daily battles, but it's very hard to document because it's very dangerous for members of the press to get in there. So what is the Syrian refugee crisis? Well, many of the refugees don't even leave Syria, which is why an astounding 50% of the Syrian population is currently displaced. 95% of the refugees that do leave go to just 5 neighboring countries, which are Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, and Iraq. Turkey alone has taken in 2.5 million refugees from Syria, more than any other country in the world. While the life in these countries is often safer, it's often no more prosperous for the refugees. So I'd like to show a short video here. It's a video by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. It's a bit older video from June 2015, but I believe it still has a valid point. It shows the numbers on the crossings from the Middle Eastern countries, as well as some interviews with refugees.
Stay calm. I say everybody, stay down, stay calm.
Everybody sit down and keep calm, okay? We take you all now.
The statistics regarding sea crossings like this one are astonishing. And as they continue to climb month after month, it becomes easy to forget that each one of the numbers is an actual person. Many millions have been forced to flee, just like Aidan and his son Zuhair. And like all the rest, they are not numbers or statistics. They are parents, and children, and families. Remembering that is essential if this global crisis can be met with a truly global solution.
So why not accept an unlimited amount of the refugees? Well, the first main issue that countries have is overpopulation. The second main reason countries are unwilling to let in the refugees is crime. For instance, in Cologne, Germany, there was large-scale cases of sexual assault by assailants who are believed to be refugees led into the country. And the third and biggest reason countries won't accept the refugees is terrorism. There are fears that the terrorists are using the refugees to get into European countries and commit terrorist attacks there. For instance, in Paris, over 130 people were killed by ISIS assailants, at least 3 of which were refugees. So what are some potential ways to solve the problem? One solution that has been proposed is to allow all the refugees into the country without restrictions. A second plan that has been proposed is to only allow the refugees in with intense background checks. The third plan that has been proposed is to turn back all the refugees to Syria or the 5 main host countries. So my solution is to only allow a small amount of refugees into the countries while maintaining most of them in the refugee camps and expanding those. This would solve the problem partially because the refugee camps wouldn't be overflowing with refugees, but neither would the European countries. So I believe this benefits the refugees, the European countries, and the camps. So for my project, I taught the 7th grade about the Syrian refugee crisis. This was good because I was able to research more for my project in order to prepare the presentation for them, while also being able to teach them about something useful. I was also able to incorporate it for when they were learning about the Middle East at the beginning of those lessons, so it fit well with their curriculum. So I chose my topic because ever since I was little, I've been interested in what's going on in other parts of the world. I'd heard a lot about refugees coming from Syria and traveling to Europe, but I didn't know much about it, so when I was given one opportunity to learn extensively about a topic, I chose the Syrian refugee crisis. Every time period has its problems, and the Syrian refugee crisis may very well be one of the biggest of this century. I believe it is manageable if we allow some of the refugees from the camps into Europe. Would that increase the risk of terrorism? Yes. But I believe it is a risk that we should take, because these people did not ask to become refugees, and they don't deserve to be sent back to the direct dangers of death and destruction. I'd like to thank my mentor, Mr. Chris. Thank you all for coming to my presentation. Any questions?